Hey guys, welcome into the Bear With Us podcast. I'm Jack. He is Frank. Frankie, it's been a minute, man. We've both been dealing with some personal stuff in our lives going on, and we figured we needed a little bit of vacation from the Bear With Us podcast. Nothing has been happening for the last couple of weeks in the NFL and Chicago Bears football in general. So we figured why not take a couple weeks, get everything straightened out, and we'll get back to it. And then I'll have a little bit of another break coming up. With baby being born, we'll probably hit pause a little bit on the podcast. But I know people have been begging. Hey guys, where the fuck's the podcast? All right, I need the content each week in my little inbox on YouTube, on Spotify, on what is it called for Apple?
Apple Podcasts.
Apple Podcasts. That's so boring.
It is.
That's so boring. But people have been begging for it, so here we are. Frankie, how you been, man?
I've been solid, man. No complaints on my end. I think we need to schedule in breaks next offseason if it's going to be as boring as this one was.
Dude, it's been rough.
It's
been really, really rough. Like the Bears, I don't know, they made the splash, with the trade, right? And we talked about that for like 8 weeks. And then the draft happened. And the first day of free agency happened, and the Bears were signing guys, kind of left and right. And then nothing. And then nothing's really happened. I mean, literally nothing.
Yeah.
I mean, like it took what? How many weeks for DeAndre Hopkins to sign with the Tennessee Titans? I mean, that took a while.
Yeah, a very long time. And even, I mean, thinking back, I mean, last offseason, I mean, we were almost spoiled. Now that I'm thinking about it, you brought up DeAndre Hopkins. I mean, Devontae Adams got traded. Tyreek Hill got traded.
Point.
I mean, the quarterbacks were moving. I mean, we had a little bit of quarterback moving this year, but over the last 2-3 years, it's been a lot. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
this season has been pretty tame in comparison. Like the biggest piece of drama has now been, and this is a very recent thing, has been the running backs on Twitter. I don't know if you've been keeping up with that at all. They've been sort of barking a little bit, and I sort of get their, I sort of get their gripe, but one of them, I don't know who it was. They put Justin Tucker's salary versus Saquon Barkley. And it's like, that's not the hill I think you want to die on, because Justin Tucker is the greatest kicker of all time.
Yeah.
And he makes $2 million. Like, he should probably make more than that.
Yeah, I saw someone post, like, in the Super Bowl winners, how much they were paying their running backs. And I think it, like, topped out at, like, $2 million. And I think it was, like, Sony Michel or something like that when he was on the Patriots. Like, that was the leading rusher in the Super Bowl on the team that won. You know what I'm saying? So, like,
yeah,
I think ultimately teams are sort of on. I think Frank, through the power of the Bear With Us podcast, has convinced NFL owners and GMs that running backs are fucking worthless after their rookie contract.
Yeah. Well, and the thing, someone actually tweeted, and it was really fucking funny. It was like, you know how they always do those like futuristic tweets, like, oh, if so-and-so didn't get in office or just whatever. They say whatever, and it's like always funny. They were like, the running back market, if James Conner never ruined it during Le'Veon Bell's holdout. That was the fucking single most funny tweet I've seen in a very long time.
It really made me think, like, was that, I do wonder if that was really the ultimate shift. Because if you think about it, like, running backs were getting paid, and then Le'Veon Bell, that was kind of the first big one where he like sat out.
Well,
like he like sat out, and
did.
Then all of a sudden James Conner was like, all right, I'm still a good running back as well. Not great. I wouldn't say James Conner was like ever like a superstar top tier running back, but he's a very good running back. He's been a very good running back. And I think teams kind of looked at it and like, and then Le'Veon Bell came back and was never the same.
Yeah, well, and I also think I think the problem is, and again, this is what I've touched on. It's not that I dislike the running back position. I dislike investing in it because the difference between average to above average to good is not that big. Now, elite, if you have a Christian McCaffrey, if you have an Alvin Kamara before the injuries and things, you pay them. Derrick Henry, you pay them. There's always going to be a handful of elite players at every single position, whether they're valued or not, you know what I mean, that are going to get paid and should get paid. And again, this is pure. I hate that I even have to preface this. This is just pure football wise. I wish everyone can get $1 billion. You know what I mean? Like let them do their thing. Let them advocate for what they think. But realistically, building a team, it doesn't make sense. Because even look at like David Montgomery had solid seasons. That's an average running back. How big of a difference was that to someone like James Conner, who might be above average? You know what I mean? Who had he had more touchdowns, obviously, but unless you're elite of the elite at that position, it doesn't make sense to invest in you. And these guys are complaining about it. I also find it ironic that two of the dudes who were sort of on the forefront were McCaffrey and Henry, who've gotten a contract. And I'm like, I get you're sticking up for them, but you already did your thing.
Yeah. I mean, well, it's tough when you say elite talent should get paid, because I do agree with you, but I would argue that Saquon Barkley does fit into that mold. But it's tough for me to be on the Giant on his side when, I mean, he's really only played one full season. Like the Giants, I do understand them being prove it to us again. Here's the tag. You're still gonna get good amount. But to me, running backs who are advocating for long-term contracts instead of signing the tag are kind of agreeing with the owners, where it's I want security in case I get hurt. And it's you're playing a position that does often get hurt and replaced very quickly and pretty cheaply as well.
And again, that's the thing. We see it all the time. I mean, do you remember, we were talking about this 2 years ago, I think now, Kareem Hunt and the other running back in Cleveland. They were both hurt. Nick Chubb. They were both hurt. And then fucking their third string comes in and rushes for 120 yards. And I was like, he's the reason why you don't invest. These third, fourth string guys usually aren't bad. You're going to have a trust in Ebner every now and then. It is what it is. They're not all going to be good. But the floor on running backs is really fucking high.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that's the reason we liked how Ryan Poles dealt with the whole situation with David Montgomery, basically saying, here's a number we think you're worth. If you can get the number you feel like you're worth, go get it. Well, but if not, here you go. And then they replaced him with two guys pretty easily.
Two guys who I think are better pure runners than him, too. And probably fit that, yeah.
I would probably rather have Donta Foreman than I would David Montgomery right now.
And Herbert, I mean, we were both banging the table last year that Herbert should have started over him when Montgomery got hurt. He was the better back. It just was what it was. It was also very ironic, though, that Montgomery, I think this was pre-draft. He was just talking about the Bears, not wanting him and sort of disrespecting him. And then they draft a running back at number 12 overall at the very new place that he's at. And it's dude, the thing is it's not funny because Detroit disrespected him, because I don't think they did. That's just the nature. No. He has to running backs are gonna have to realize if this is the position you're going pro at, it is what it is, man. Y'all better band together and learn how to be more business savvy throughout this, because it's not gonna change anytime soon.
That's kind of the thing that I think annoyed, because normally I'm on the player side because the owners, whatever, pay the player. I don't really care. Right. It's not my team. I don't care if the Chargers pay Austin Eckler a ton of money. I don't care. It's not my team. I prefer. Although for a guy like that, I probably would want to, but he is also the age. There are trends that do appear with guys who are a little bit older, and regardless. But I think that's the thing that bothers me, and some of the responses that guys have had on Twitter, specifically Austin Eckler, where it's they take what people say on Twitter as signs of disrespect when it's simply pointing out facts, and they're you guys are the ones who are making the market not non-existent. And it's I seriously doubt that the media or fans have a true impact on any sort of market. GMs, coaches, they understand where the running back market is and how valuable it is to have that position. You need the quarterback. That's what you need. And that's why the Giants paid Daniel Jones instead of Saquon Barkley.
Yep.
That's the whole thing.
Yep. No, and the funny thing is that they say that, but they don't well, I'm sure some of them or most of them do, but what a lot of fans don't realize is these GMs and scouts and everything, they're using totally different metrics than what we have available to us. That's why PFF and all these other ones, they've literally developed their own analytics. We have no idea that it could be, and truth be told, each team has their own analytics team. They all do things differently. That's why some people's boards are vastly different. So the Lions are picking a running back at 12. We're all laughing. That dude might be the next fucking, LaDainian Tomlinson and helps lead them to a Super Bowl in the next couple of years. Then we're like, who's laughing now? You know what I mean? So it's funny now, but what I'm saying is like, that's why these teams make decisions that people are like, what the fuck? This NFL draft expert had him in the third round. It's like, it doesn't matter. They're not listening to you guys at all.
Right.
So it's the same thing with the running backs. Like this is a trend because every single team agrees that your guys' value can be replaced by a mid-round draft pick.
So I think ultimately it falls on the Players Association in the next collective bargaining agreement to basically say, all right, and this is what I would do if I were them. To draft a running back, I think, because I know it's like every player slot has a specific total salary designated to it in the draft. But I think what they're going to have to do is maybe like make it at least the running back position like positional value, and maybe just like up the salary on the rookie contract specifically for running backs. Because
that's one way,
they're not getting to that second contract. And if they are, it's good like the 1 year, the 2 year, the franchise tag. They just have to get rid of the franchise tag in general. Because it's such a bonus for the team to have. It's just ridiculous how like unreasonable that tag can be when it's utilized. But the Players Association kind of sucks, in my opinion. They don't really do a good job, and I think players have said that.
I was just gonna say the players definitely agree with you. So I'm in favor of getting rid of the franchise tag. The one thing though, knowing that it's not gonna go away, I would make them up the running back, the number on the tag for the running back, because that's the only position that's gone down.
Right.
It's gone down tremendously versus like a quarterback. You're paying a quarterback at this point $50 million for that 1 year if they get tagged.
And ultimately, it's worth it because of how much more important quarterbacks are.
Yep.
And we've seen that trend continue into the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I mean, generally speaking, you would rather have an average quarterback than a really good running back. Because that average that average quarterback is going to...
Look at the Titans. They have a really good running back, and they have a below-average quarterback, and they haven't done shit.
Wait, Tanny is below average?
I'd give him below. I've been saying he's below average for years.
He had a couple years there though.
Nah, he sucked.
Where he was fringe top 10. Sucked.
Him and Marcus Mariota, both fucking bums.
Mariota was bad.
Tried to tell all of y'all. And just
I didn't like him coming out. I didn't like him coming out of college though.
No,
I never saw it with him.
I love Jameis. I will admit, I love Jameis coming. I didn't
really like either of them, to be honest.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. There was that little period of time where quarterbacks coming out.
Yeah, it was, and that was more of it than anything I saw. I remember I didn't like watch too much film, but I did watch like the big bowl games and such, and I saw both of them, and I was like, these are the two guys, huh? Like they just didn't,
Jameis could have been. He could have been a thing. He could have been a thing if
He just
he wasn't blind, like they always say.
This was to a much more untrained eye than what I have now. Not to say that my eye is trained by any means, but just knowing what I know now about football, I didn't have then. And when I saw Jameis, he had like a clunkiness about him, like with his footwork, and I was like, that can get cleaned up, but it felt more to me like a body type. He's like long and lanky, and like when he would drop back to throw, he just looked weird. And then Mariota just seemed, I don't know, I don't think I ever trusted anyone coming out of Oregon. That offense was so, I don't know what the right word is.
I would love to go back and like have the knowledge that we do now and look at some of the quarterbacks that were coming out of the draft. Like ultimately 2012, like I wonder how much would be different. When you look at a guy like Russell Wilson, does he still fall into the third round? I don't know. I would have loved to have done like a 2012 QB rankings. I mean, I would have had luck first, but that's what we should do in off season, Jackie. We should do redrafts. People love that shit.
They
do love that shit. That is true. I saw people redrafting Russell Wilson to the Colts at number 1. Like, get the fuck out of here.
Over luck?
Over luck.
No.
Get the fuck out of here.
Because in no way do you ever know that he's going to retire when he did. But as a prospect, Andrew Luck was a better. I mean, I would even say in the league he was a better quarterback, not just the prospect.
Let's be real. He got drafted to a terrible organization that just failed him. As simple as that. Simple as that, really. And
no, it's true.
I mean, you look at. I feel like we were kind of, ultimately you and I have sort of been on the mark the last couple of years when we do our QB rankings, and we'll see how it goes this year. But you and I weren't big fans of Zach Wilson, and that's kind of came through. I said Kenny Pickett was better than Malik Willis. You said there were ulterior motives coming through that, which
that's prevailing to be true.
Disagree with. But the team basically has given up on him.
Which is weird because the beat reporters there are saying Malik Willis looks really fucking good this camp. Like he's looked like the better quarterback than Will.
I wonder what you do then. Like what do you do as the Titans? Like you trade one of them?
I think Tannehill's still going to be the starter.
Yes.
I think you hang on to both of them, and what you do
see what works.
Yeah, and if the season starts to go south, you give whoever has looked best throughout practices, throughout training camps, you give them the first go of it. I mean, to be honest with you, I if I was a Titans fan, I would want it to go south. I would want to know what I have in one of those two guys, if not both of those guys. But I think that I think the coaching staff is too good. I think that the floor of that roster is too good, so they're going to be in that. So they better hope one of those two quarterbacks is good, because they're not going to be in position to draft anyone in the next couple of years in the top. What would you say, 10?
Just such a weird team. That might, you know what? Maybe during the offseason we'll have to. I want to rank not like best teams and not worst teams. I want to rank weird teams. I want to rank the weirdest teams.
The weirdest team, yeah.
That just like you just don't really understand what they're doing.
What was the first one that came to mind to you when you outside of the Titans? What's another one?
The Raiders.
Yeah,
they're not paying Josh Jacobs after letting go their quarterback and replacing him with a guy who's arguably the same person.
Yeah, the first one that came to me was the Falcons.
That's also a good one,
because I just feel like they're so loaded at the skill positions.
Washington is another one.
Washington, that's just been them. Remember when we were doing
but that's why I love it.
I know. Remember when we I feel like maybe this year we haven't been as creative as we have in the past either. But because remember we're doing our 5 favorite players from every franchise over the last however many years.
That was great.
We were like struggling. We were struggling to find Redskins. Well, it was the Redskins at the time, the Washington football team.
If you asked me to do that again, like right now, what were your answers?
I know the 3 for sure. Champ Bailey, Clinton Portis, and Santana Moss.
Taylor.
And Sean Taylor was on that list too, and then
Jason Campbell,
maybe, or just like Kirk Cousins.
You've always been a Terry McLaurin fan, though.
I have liked Terry. Yeah, I think people would, if he had a quarterback, Jack, people would look at him much different. He's a dog. He's a very good player.
Let's just say if he was a guy who got traded for the number 1 overall pick instead of DJ Moore, I don't necessarily think I would be upset.
I view them in a similar light, though. I don't know. It's a little bit different of a skill set, but yeah, no, they're in that same like tier. They're like 1B, but they have the potential to be more than that.
Like get that guy a quarterback and see what.
Right, top 25 guys, yeah, top 30, top 25 in that range, just because of the situations that they've been in. But again, I thought the same of AJ Brown. Granted, he's more of a physical specimen, but he didn't have 1,000-yard receiving seasons with the Titans. And he looked like one of those dudes. As a matter of fact, before we got traded, I was like, is it him or is it the system? Like, what? Is he a little overhyped? And he goes to the Eagles and he shows you who he really is in a real offensive, a real passing system,
I would just be extremely curious to have gone through that process with DeAndre Hopkins just to see kind of what his mindset was. Because, like, clearly it was all the money. Because what could the Titans have shown him in their previous history to, like, lead him to believe that he's going to have the opportunities that he's had in the other offenses that he has? Like,
I don't know. They don't throw the ball very much.
Look at the Titans wide receivers they've had before. Not AJ Brown. Well, yes, AJ Brown.
AJ Brown.
But no, I was thinking of Andre Johnson.
Yep.
Randy Moss.
Yep.
And then who was the other old one that made a pit stop?
There was one more. I'm blanking on who it was.
Julio Jones.
Julio, that's right. Yep.
I mean, Julio. I would say
he was hurt though.
DeAndre Hopkins is in a different scenario than those three because he is.
Yes.
They were all sort of in the twilight of their careers. He could still be productive.
I think he's got another 2 or 3 seasons for sure. Yeah.
But is he going to be the 1,000-yard, 8-touchdown guy again? I don't know.
I don't know. But I will say I do like him and Treylon Burks as the 1-2 punch now. That's solid little.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Treylon not having to be the guy, I think, is good.
I agree. I mean, but shit, they're still going to be leaning on Derrick Henry quite a bit.
This has to be the year, right? Where he sort of just falls apart.
We listen. I
stopped for three years now.
And you know, he's at the age now in dynasties. I certainly won't be buying him, but in startups, you know, back end of the first round, first half of the second round, I'm all in.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's not a lot of running backs I would really draft right now, but he's still up there. I think.
I agree.
Yeah, I mean, I think there are a lot of weird teams out there. I think this could be a fun little thing to do.
I mean, the weirdest team that we didn't talk about is probably the Denver Broncos. They're fucking weird. Because it's not even just like what happened to Russ last season, but like look at the receiving core. Like Sutton was on this upward trajectory, and then it just deaded, and then every single year, Judy has this like hype. He must have the greatest PR team of all time. Because I really liked him coming out of college. I did.
Me too.
Best route runner in the class. Still a very good route runner.
There's like 4 overall in our first dynasty draft I ever did.
He's essentially done nothing in the league. And everyone's like, well, wait, this year's Jerry Judy. This is the year. And it's like, he has, like, his route running is still there, but he has the dropsies, man. Like, he hasn't proven that, you know, through 17 games, he's a reliable target. And it's not to say he's a bum by any means. He's a solid player, but the way people are talking is like he's ready to take the next step to be a top 10 dude. Like, he might not be a top 50 guy right now. No disrespect.
Especially not in this offense where they're going to be running the ball a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, it is. You're right. That is a very strange team.
Strange team.
Like, I don't know, man. I might even throw the Packers in there if I'm being completely honest with you. They're a little strange. A little strange.
They're a little bit, but I wouldn't put them in the same tier as those other teams.
I think we need to have a consensus about who the top 5. I think we might need to do top 5 best, top 5 weird, and then top 5 worst. Because
I'm all in.
I think you and I may disagree on who the worst team in the league is going to be.
The worst team in the league is
I'm
going
not gonna
to
spoil
be.
mine.
I mean, it's probably going to be Houston. I could see Tennessee too, though. I feel like they have a pretty low floor. But Mike Vrabel just fucking injects things into his players.
Here's the thing. I think the Texans might actually be pretty good. Not pretty good. I'm not going to say that. Let me retract that statement. I think they're going to be better than people think they're going to be, and that's only because I really do like CJ Stroud. Yeah,
but people think they're going to win 2 games. So if they win like 3 or 4,
that's an improvement.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, what are we talking about?
I think the Cardinals are going to be the worst team.
Oh yeah, I forgot about the Cardinals because Kyler's going to be out. I think I made this prediction. I think he's going to sit out the whole year and they trade him next offseason, 100%, and then they go out and get Caleb Williams.
Caleb Williams and Marvin Harrison Jr. That'd be fun.
Who's the other first round pick? They have Houston's first round pick.
They have Houston's.
Damn.
For that Will Anderson pick.
Yeah. I like that for both of those teams. I like that for both of them, to be honest with you.
Texans better hope that he's all that.
I mean, no, I like the way someone framed it though. Like, what if they took Will Anderson at 2 and then traded up to get the quarterback? No one would give a fuck. So they got both of them with these trade ups. Who cares? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
I didn't mind it.
I don't think you build a team like that, but you know, Houston's obviously been so successful at team building. So,
well, I mean, come on, as if Arian Foster didn't fucking will that team to the playoffs for 3 seasons.
The playoffs where they did nothing.
You're a real piece of shit, Jack. Okay.
I hate the Texans. I've always hated them.
I know you do.
Remember, last thing before we talk about our main topic, and I know people are going to be like, God damn, there's something they actually want to talk about.
I know.
Do you remember, and I truly feel bad about this, do you remember when Arian Foster was like the first game after Chuck Pagano was diagnosed with cancer, and he went and he like tapped the sign at Lucas Oil, and people thought like he was like a piece of shit because he was like mocking him or something like that. Do you remember
No,
that?
no, I don't remember this at all.
Yeah. Oh, it was a huge controversy. And he was like, after the game, he's like, no, 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 no. I was just like, we're like, I'm thinking of him.
That's how I would have taken it. Yeah. Why else
But
would you be tapping?
Colts fans were very upset because it was like right after the Texans scored a touchdown, and they thought he was like mocking.
Yeah, I wouldn't have. No, that's not. And just knowing who Arian Foster is, granted, I got to know him through like his podcast. Right. He's on another podcast, and he's talks a lot about sort of his values and things. It
was back in the early days of Twitter. I think it was like 2012.
Oh, that would have been fucking.
2020.
That was when Twitter was crazy.
Yeah, Wild
West. Well, it's crazy in a different way now, but if you need your daily dose of neo-Nazis, just hop on there for a few minutes. The algorithm will get you.
They'll find you some good ones to follow.
Yeah, 100%. Or just like extremist Islam, one or the other. What's the difference? I was just saying, what the fuck is the difference at this point?
Bots talking about just ex-player beta. That's all I see. LeBron beta. Michael beta. This is why Kobe's the greatest. Like, there's just the comments, man. It's rough.
Yeah.
It's kind of sad because like I feel like a few years ago people would like actually engage in like conversations.
I agree. I know.
And now it's literally just.
But it's Jackie. The problem is it's a bunch of fucking kids. They're literally little kids. They're literally like 13 years old, and like this is the way that they. Because I remember like early in the internet days when I would be on forums for sports. That like I like you would change people's names to like make fun of them. Right. Like these are kids. This is what kids do. And I could immediately tell when I was on those boards when I started to interact with an adult because they wouldn't do that. And I was like, okay, I like once I got a little bit older, I was like, this is stupid. Like I sound like an idiot right now.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you definitely don't sound stupid now.
Well, I hope I don't. But
I guess I'll let our audience dictate that.
But really, last thing, to your point, I saw today bots going after, bots or kids going after Nikola Jokic. They called him Brickolai. What the fuck was the last something? Brickolai something. And I was just like, what are we doing, dude?
LaBum. How many times have we seen LaBum? Fraud. Everyone's a fraud.
I see Jor fraud.
Everyone's a fraud. That one doesn't even make any sense.
I know.
It doesn't make any sense.
Hey, that's what honestly it bothers me when I know it's an adult that does this. Like the profile picture is a grown ass man, and I'm like, what the fuck are you doing with your life, bro?
Mickey, everything's a Mickey Mouse ring.
Yeah,
right?
no ring has counted since 2020.
Yeah. Everyone's a bum. Yeah. Everyone's a fraud. Everyone sucks. Everyone's better than that person.
Yep.
Don't care. Post some random trade. I see that one a lot too.
I know.
Post Dame trade. Shut the fuck up.
It's horrible.
All of you bots. Yeah, it's bad. But you know what's not bad, Frank? Well, I guess I can't say that for sure. But the Bears coaching staff. Look at that transition. Boom. Seamless.
Perfect.
Frankie, that is what we wanted to talk about today in this edition of the Bear With Us podcast. We did want to touch on where we kind of think the Bears coaching staff is at. Because as great as an offseason as I think, as I know, I believe Ryan Poles has had, and I believe Frank also agrees in regards to Ryan Poles, ultimately, a lot of the decisions that he has made are going to come down how Eberflus and his staff can implement those changes and utilize the skill sets that have been brought in and maximize this team's potential to whatever that's going to be. Whether that's going to be Super Bowl. Maybe it is that. What can Matt Eberflus... I mean, we've seen coaches just maximize their roster's talent, and you're just like, how are you doing this? but we still, I would argue, Matt Eberflus and his staff are still pretty big question marks. There were a lot of times last year that I was upset, and Frank had to talk me down a little bit on the post game podcast. And I'm still kind of wondering what exactly we should be expecting of this coaching staff. Frank, where do you want to start? Do you want to start with the head honcho? Do you want to start offense? Do you want to start defense? What do you want to do here?
Let's start on the defensive side of the football. Let's start with Alan Williams.
Okay.
Because I'm trying to not be so harsh on, the thoughts that I have on him. I know there wasn't a lot of talent on the defensive side of the ball, but they got rid of the talent that they did have. Totally get that. Throw that out the window. But we also saw Sean Desai a year before that. Granted, again, he had a little bit more talent, but even when things didn't work, you saw him trying things, some exotic blitzes, some stunts on the defensive line. I mean, the first 6 weeks when Khalil Mack and Robert Quinn were healthy, those stunts that Sean Desai had going were crazy. They were, and remember he lined them up on the same side of the line a couple times, just real creative shit. But we knew we had to get that creative because the defense really wasn't that good. Khalil Mack was essentially a shell of himself. We had no idea what we had at linebacker. Safety was up in the air. It was just all over the place. Corner, I mean, fuck. I don't remember who our second corner was at that point. It was crazy. But Sean
Kendall. I think
it may have been Kendall Vildor. You're right. But point being, he was really really doing things, and sometimes it did come to bite him. But it was hey, that's what you have to do sometimes to try to muster things up. There were sometimes the Bears got beat 3rd and long because he went with an exotic blitz that just didn't work. But it's if you just let them sit back in coverage, same thing would happen. So let's try some things. And I feel that's what was missing from Alan Williams last year was what exactly are you trying to get this defense out of this funk? What are you doing to set them up for success? Because as I analyzed not only Alan Williams, but Eberflus as well, neither come across to me as the type of coach that is going to schematically give you an advantage from week to week. That's not necessarily a bad thing. There are coaches who win in this league just because they know how to set their players up for success. That's a skill in and of itself. Now, I think the ones who do both are a Kyle Shanahan. That's absurd. You're a different level. Andy Reid, you're a different level of coach. Bill Belichick did it for years. And, I'm even with that thought of maybe schematically Alan Williams doesn't do all that much, because you think back to even Rod Marinelli. I don't think he drew up crazy exotic blitzes and this and that, but he knew how to fucking coach that cover too. And
right.
And outside of your pillars who could have just skipped every practice like Urlacher and Mike Brown, and although we know the guys who were the pillars, you had guys stepping up all the time in those defenses that weren't those pillars because they were being coached up in that way, coached up in that scheme. They weren't asked to do anything exotic, anything crazy. They knew the role. They played their role. I don't even know if I saw that, because the other question that I had, Jackie, and I'll throw it to you to give your thoughts, rebuttal, or however you want to do it. Who on the defensive side of the ball got better over the year? Because the only player that I could think of was Sanborn, but I was he didn't really get better. He just finally got a shot. You know what I mean? That wasn't he started off kind of and turned it around. But
right.
Yeah, so it was what exactly did Alan Williams provide? Which to me, I guess the last thing with that is he has the opportunity now to show maybe he just needed that year to lay that foundation with some of these young guys, and maybe we see it this year. But that's what I do need to see. I need to see players get better. Maybe Dominique Robinson has some good games. Maybe we continue to see progress with the corners, and then we have a rookie corner coming in. You know what I mean? There has to be something, or because to me, I wanted to start with him because I do think his seat is the hottest if we're talking about someone being let go after the season.
Yeah. It's interesting because I feel like there's been this shift. I would say probably Sean McVay was really the one that started it all, that kicked off the need to have the offensive genius. Obviously what led the Bears to Matt Nagy. It's what, Kyle Shanahan, why he got the job. It's why the Browns head coach, name's escaping me, it doesn't matter. He's a fucking bum too.
Stefanski.
Stefanski. He moved from the Vikings to the Browns, and it hasn't really worked. But he was kind of the lead to that. And what was interesting was when we were growing up, mid 2000s, early 2010s, I feel like you kind of just, your coaches were just good at coaching, and play callers were just good, like just needed to be good play callers. Where like now it's like you need the genius level, super creative plays, how to get an offense to work. And I feel like Alan Williams is kind of like a product of the past, which is something that you and I were both a little bit worried about when Matt Eberflus originally got hired, is because it did feel very much like status quo for the Bears, the typical coach they look for, a guy who's just, can coach guys, right? But how is how is Alan Williams? And yes, I know the Bears beat the 49ers in week 1, but let's be real, anybody could have won that game. That was not football, like top tier football, obviously. But like, let's say NFC Championship game, right? Like Alan Williams going up against Kyle Shanahan and his offense. Can Alan Williams go toe for toe, like match for match, play for play with Kyle Shanahan and that creativity? I to your point, I didn't really see a whole lot of that last year. And again, the talent was not there. Like, let's be very real, very transparent. He did not have a lot to work with, so maybe that is the case. But it was, a question you just asked, I think was great. Who got better? Because that was a question you and I were fucking screaming from the mountaintops in terms of Matt Nagy and his offense for 3 years. Like, who has gotten better in this offense? And the answer was no one. And so if that is going to be a common trend, if nobody improves from last year, and there are guys who can, right? Like, and I think that's a big part of last year was like, all right, who can develop? Really, the only answer was Travis Gibson, because he was one of the only carryovers that really got to start. Eddie Jackson improved his play, but I wouldn't say that was necessarily from coaching. I would say that was just scheme fit. It was just better for his skill set.
And they put him back in his actual position too.
Right, exactly. And 2 guys that can show improvement, or 3 guys really, maybe even 4. Travis, Dominique Robinson, who you mentioned, Kyler Gordon, and Jaquan Brisker.
Yep.
If all 4 of those guys show improvement in this scheme and show that they can be reliable NFL players, maybe even star level players, like you'd hope Jaquan Brisker could be, then maybe you got something. But if this defense kind of looks more or less the same as it did last year, I think I agree with you. You might need to get someone a little bit more innovative in that defensive coordinator spot, somebody who can match some of these exotic offenses.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And again, as it relates to Matt Eberflus, the head honcho of the whole thing, sometimes, again, there's coaching, because that's exactly what Lovey was. Lovey, once he knew how to build, he knew what he needed for his defense. Him and Jerry Angelo worked very well together, and they got it done. That may be a thing here as well. So on the defensive side of the ball, as long as we're seeing that sort of improvement from these key players, and especially from draft picks that they've drafted together, I would be okay with keeping Alan Williams and Matt Eberflus moving forward. That to me is, especially the things that we're hearing about these interior defensive linemen that they drafted. Mm-hmm. If they can make them, one or both of them, into fucking monsters, you keep cultivating that. You keep going with that. And I guess as it relates, Jackie, just moving over to the offensive side of the football, same has to be said. Luke Getsy didn't have much talent on offense. He was working with a pretty broken offensive line, so he had to really, lean into Justin's run game. And to me, that was a big plus for him, because we didn't see that early in the year. It wasn't until the Patriots game when they really unleashed him, and it was like, holy shit. Like, we knew Justin can run, but we didn't know Justin could run. You know what I mean? Like, that was a different level of running ability that he had shown at that point, especially like actual called runs. We saw the scramble. We saw the, get out of the pocket even his rookie year. This was like designed RPO run type of things where he was taking it to the house. Like, it was absurd. So he gets credit there, but there were too many times for me, and I know you as well, where it was like, why isn't he moving the pocket right now for Justin? It's early, it's first quarter. Why aren't we just getting this offense into a rhythm? One thing that I hated that I didn't see essentially the whole first half of the season was any sort of hurry up offense. They would have a big play and then they just slow it back down. And I'm like, what are we doing? Like, this offense is not good enough to just like do that and then, okay, let's be meticulous about this. Let's, make sure run the same exact play if you have to. Just go hurry up offense, do the same thing, see if it works. Like, you just do these little things that, you're able to continue to have success on offense. And I don't know, it still felt, outside of the run game was phenomenal. I guess that's another plus for Getsy. That, for as bad as of a pass blocking unit as that offensive line was, they were ranked in the top 10 by many metrics running the ball. I don't know how much of that has to do with Justin running the ball as well. I'd like to see if they can separate that just for like actual drawn up run plays. But regardless, they were a top 10 run blocking unit. They won a lot of the run blocking assignments. But it still felt like it was a little bit identityless. Did it not for a good portion of that season? The only time it felt like there was an identity, it was hard for me to give credit to Luke Getsy because it felt like it was Justin Fields becoming Superman. You know what I mean? Like, it just felt like it was his time to take over because there weren't ever any like easy. Well, I don't want to say any. Getsy had a handful, if not more than that, throughout the year. Especially, I'm thinking like first half before things unraveled a little bit later. Where Cole Kmet was wide open for a 40-yard touchdown. So he schemed some things up. He definitely schemed some things up, but it wasn't always all that consistent. And again, the talent is there or what wasn't there. So you throw all that in there. And that's why I feel like I'm not being as harsh on him than I was on Alan Williams, because I think his job is a little bit safer. I don't think he's going to be the next head coaching candidate elsewhere unless DJ Moore is going to be that big of a leap and then, improving the offensive line the way that they did will continue to help him. But I didn't see like young offensive genius from Luke Getsy. What I saw mostly was like common sense play calling, but also being severely outcoached. Thinking back to that Packers game where we're down like 21. And then Matt LaFleur after the game is like, oh, he ran the ball so well. Like, it was so, and I don't know if he meant it this way. I doubt that he did, but to me, it was like, hey, bozo, you're down 21. We want you to run the clock out. Like, you did great. Perfect. There were just certain times, you know what I mean? There were certain times like that where I was like, Getsy, like, I'm no fucking professional, man. But if I see this and Jack sees this and we're texting each other, like, you gotta do something. So his job of the coordinators is the safest between him and Allen. And we're not going to touch special teams. I don't really know. I don't think either of us know shit about special teams. So who the fuck knows? Yeah. But between those two, I think his job is a little bit safer. But then the argument comes like, do you want him to really, really improve and like run a top 5 unit and then you lose him right away? I almost don't. I kind of do and I kind of don't. You know what I mean? Like, if he were to be that.
Yeah. Yeah. I was going to say it's either for Getsy, it's either leaves to become a head coach or he stays. Like, I do not see a scenario where he gets fired unless things really just get off the rails here and it just looks like a complete and utter mess. But a lot of the things you said, Frank, I do agree with. Like, there were a lot of times last year where, you and I were texting each other, basically like, where is the pocket movement? Where is the play action? Like, still, so a lot of carryover questions that we were having from the previous regime, like the previous coaching staff had issues with the same things. And it was kind of frustrating because there were times Getsy would do it. And then just it would disappear for lengths at a time. And, I didn't really understand his game plan. There were a few times the pass blocking was not very good, and yet he continued to not make it easier for Justin Fields to make plays. Granted, same thing with Alan Williams. The talent wasn't necessarily that, especially when Darnell Mooney went out. But, I mean, the biggest question mark for me is, can Luke Getsy maximize the skill players that he has to work with? Because, I mean, Chase Claypool got there and did nothing, which was just super weird. And if it's that complicated of an offense, why were they not scoring more points? I did not understand why it took Chase Claypool so long to get involved. Like, remember those first 2 weeks where it was like they weren't even throwing him the ball. It was like, what was the point of spending a second round pick if you're not going to use him? Like, that makes me a little bit nervous still, right? Can he really utilize DJ Moore's skill set? I don't know. The running back stuff, how is he going to use a rotation or like a running back rotation? Like, he wasn't able to really do it last year, Like David Montgomery, like Khalil Herbert, while David Montgomery was out, was putting up 100-yard games. He was, breaking off 50-yard runs, and then David Montgomery came back, and that was it. We never saw him again. He didn't really throw to the running backs a lot, which I thought was kind of weird. Like, he didn't call screens. He didn't really do a whole lot of that.
Oh, he loved the tight end screen, Jackie.
Love the tight end screen. If I have to see the fucking tight end screen one more, like, it just doesn't. He seems to be someone who's very stubborn and just wants to call what he wants to call versus taking what the defense is giving him. Now, granted, it's first season play calling. There was absolutely room for improvement. Let's see how he did that. But I do not think it's a slam dunk that this offense is going to be super improved from last year just because they got DJ Moore. I thought the same thing about when they got Chase Claypool. I was like, all right, this offense might look a little bit better. And then they looked the same, if not worse.
Yeah. The running back thing is one that I did forget about. They have built a solid running back room here. You're going to have to utilize at least both of them. But for everything that we've heard about Rashawn Johnson is like, get him in there as well. Get him in the mix. I guess what I want to see from him next year, I guess as a mark of an improvement, is obviously just a more consistent offense. There was that 6 or 7 week stretch where they were a top 5 offense in the league. Again, it's hard for me to credit Getsy for that. It was just, Fields coming into his own. But there needs to be more consistency throughout a 17-game season. But 2 is we've had some pretty bad offensive coordinators here in Chicago. And one of the ones that I think was if you sort of were ranking, he'd be towards the bottom, was Mike Tice. And, in that offense, Cutler had a solid year, and Brandon Marshall had like a 1,500-yard season or something crazy, but it's because he was only drawing up plays for him. They were like, do you remember there were literally plays where it was only him running a route? Yep. And like Cuddy Marshall magic just happened, and they would just somehow complete it through in triple coverage. And I say that to say, I need Luke Getsy to show me that the offense isn't going to just be Justin Fields and DJ Moore. I need you to know what his skill set is, and also not only utilize that to get him his, and hopefully he gets 1,300 yards, X amount of touchdowns, that's circumstantial. But then, hey, here's Darnell Mooney for 950. Here's Chase Claypool for 809 touchdowns. You know what I mean? Like, utilizing that, now that you have that alpha, to set everyone else up for success as well, and have more disguises. And for the love of God, the one thing that we both neglected, Jack, this is like a staple in every offense. Let's get some pre-snap motion. Let's help Justin out and understanding what's happening pre-snap. Like you hear the way people break things down, and even this dude, he was on the Packers practice squad for a couple of years. I forget his name, Brett something. He's a gamer and he does like Twitch and everything, but he's been playing Madden, and he's been like, first of all, it's unfair.
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
NFL quarterback should not be playing fucking Madden. Dude, he's telling you what he's going to do. He's like, I'm motioning him to the right because if the linebacker goes here, I know they're in a cover 2. And if he does this, I know they're man-to-man. Or they can even tip off a blitz if I motion him this way. It's absurd how they're what they know to do pre-snap and like the look they know that they're going to get. And he was just talking. He's like, this is even in real life. He's like, things can be disguised and you have to know what to look for post-snap. And he's like, that's why I never made it far, because it's hard to fucking process in real time. But pre-snap, every elite high school quarterback knows what to do pre-snap. And I can't recall more than a handful of pre-snap things that Luke Getsy did last year.
Yeah, I think number one thing for me will be establishing that identity. Like, what does this team do well other than just Justin Fields being Justin Fields? Because that basically is what this offense boiled down to last year. To me, there can be no games like the Reds, I almost said the Redskins. They're not the Redskins. They were not last year as well. There can be no games like there were against the Commanders this season. I know. No more of that. No more of that, because this offense now is too good. They're Justin's too good. DJ Moore is too good. The other skill players are too good to have any sort of game where they're like throwing for like 48 yards. Like that cannot happen. No more of that. Like, there are no excuses for this offense to really not work other than the offensive line still needing time to adjust.
Yep.
Because there are some movements, right? There are some new faces, but to me, there are no excuses anymore. Like last year because if Byron Pringle is seeing the field, which I don't even think he's on the team anymore, but if a guy like that is needing to make plays for you, shit has gone south. Like injuries happen, et cetera, et cetera. But I think this season you really do have to judge how Luke Getsy is able to command it, because this is his show. This is the whole thing. This is his baby. This is his, like, he'll confer some things with Eberflus, but ultimately it's his decisions on a lot of the offensive decisions. And we'll see how Justin has adjusted, how he's taken a leap in terms of reading defenses, like you were talking about. If he's able to spread the ball around to make this offense actually work, as opposed to, like you were just saying, only focusing on DJ Moore because he's so good. Can you get other people involved as well? Because, again, last year, it just felt like too many times where it was the X player show, right? Like it was the Justin Fields game for the 7th time, or it's the Cole Kmet game, or it's the Darnell Mooney game. Like, instead of having one player just dominate, can you get other guys involved where it's like DJ Moore does finish with 88 yards, but Darnell Mooney finishes with 60, and Chase Claypool finished with 40, and Cole Kmet finished for 50 and a touchdown. Like, can you do that? Are you able to spread the ball around enough to keep those guys involved and really maximize where you have all this skill, all these talents? Can he use them? I don't know. Left to be seen.
Yep. That to me is the biggest test. And if we have to put a number on it, Jack, they have to be a top half. You got to be a top 16 offense. I'm not asking for you to be, to be a top 5. That would be phenomenal. Who would say no to that, right? But
would love it.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, like, realistically, from where they weren't far off of that, even with the faults that they had. Now you have more talent. Go out there and be top 12, top 15, top 14. You give me that. But the most important thing is just consistency. Don't just how you described. Like, that's why they were so inconsistent, because it never seemed like there was a game where everything was clicking on all cylinders. We just had that hot streak from Justin, and he was the thing that was clicking. Like that. Right. That was it. But Jackie, I think we go on to the last, because I don't have much to say about Eberflus, because the one thing that we loved for him coming in was he said, I'm going to be the CEO. That was the one thing where it reminded us about Lovey in the fucking good way. That to me, that is the mark of a really good head coach. That isn't here to, like, call plays. If you hire a Shanahan, or Andy Reid, that's going to happen. That's cool. He's not that. Even when he was a defensive coordinator and he was calling those plays, I don't want my head coach to call defensive plays. It feels weird to me. You know what I mean? It just doesn't have the same feel as if they're calling offensive plays. Others may feel different. That's okay. But I love that mindset. But at the end of the day, what that means is you are finding an offensive coordinator, a defensive coordinator, and all of their assistants that fit with what you want to do on both sides of the ball. So you being held, like, the way you're going to be held accountable is by their success. So we're talking about probably Alan Williams being his seat being the hottest, which I still don't think he would get fired. It would have to be a Mel Tucker type of season. I think they raised the floor on that defense. I don't think there's a shot that happens unless crazy injuries happen, and then you probably even throw Alan Williams another olive branch there. But we talked about our sort of the lows with him. Same with Getsy. If they don't ascend anymore, if that's just sort of who they are, that's going to be a direct reflection of Matt Eberflus. So then what do you do there? Because the one thing is for certain, I do think he's building a culture very differently than what Matt Nagy did. Nagy came in, he was the cool guy. He was the players' first coach. He was funny with the media. Everyone loved him. But I don't know if he built that same type of cachet that Matt Eberflus is. Just listening to the way that the rookies talk about, when Nagy was there early on, we didn't really hear that. We didn't hear, it felt more like he was their friend.
Right.
Versus Eberflus, so, hey, you ready to be a Chicago Bear? Get your track shoes. They know that this is their coach. You know what I mean? And I'm sure there's friendly moments, there's funny moments. They're grown men at the end of the day. You're not going to be a militant guy towards them. You know what I mean? As their head coach. But that dynamic does feel different, at least right now, does it not? Where it's like, it feels more like, this is going to sound bad, and I don't mean it this way, because, again, I don't hate Matt Nagy anymore. It feels like there's an adult in the room. You know what I mean? Versus, like, Nagy, there was a little bit of the, God, now I sound old, but, like, there was a little bit of too much fun in the room. Like it. Whereas I feel like Eberflus is But no, it's not even that, because I don't mind that, but Eberflus comes more of like, this is still a job at the end of the day. Like, we can have fun, we can do our thing, but this is a job, and our job is to win a Super Bowl. You know what I'm saying? Like, he brings that sort of vibe to it. And that's the same thing that Lovey did. When the fuck was anyone laughing and shit when Lovey was here? He was here, and like you even hear, like, I think I've told the story before, but not Alex Brown. It may have been Alex Brown, actually. It was either Alex Brown or the other defensive end from that era. And they were talking, and they were like, every single time we'd go and we knew we fucked up, like, either the practice before or the game before, and we try to like sneak by his office when we were at Hallis Hall, and all of a sudden you just hear him, "Hey, big guy, come in, step into the office." And they were like, fuck, like he's gonna chew me out right now. But like, they knew what it was. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, it had that vibe of like, hey, this is coach. I respect the fuck out of him. We have our fun. He treats us like an adult. But when we fuck up, he's going to let us know. And Eberflus gives me that same vibe. So I say all that to say, I don't want to be in the position where I have to separate the two. Man, he set this culture up great. Look at the way Justin has ascended. Look at the way that these young guys respond to him. His coordinators kind of fucking suck. And he's the one that hired these guys. You get what I'm saying? Like, we're going to be back in that position of like, what was more important? Him, you know, the negative of him hiring two bad coordinators, or the pro of him building this sort of, or cultivating this culture that is banding these young players together, that's allowing them to thrive a little bit more. You get what I mean? That's what I don't want to be in that position, Jack.
Yeah, where you're just trying to have to divide the positives and the negatives.
Exactly.
And, you know, it's. I mean, realistically, it's what we were doing 2 years ago, where
Exactly.
it's like, okay, do we get rid of the GM who's brought in some good players, or do we get rid of the coach who I don't know. I really don't know what qualities he had at that point that we would have wanted. But regardless, I think I have a higher standard for Matt Eberflus going into this year, simply because there was a lot last year that I did not like, and it was things that, you know, like I said, you kind of talked me down on. But I need to see him be a little bit more aggressive. Now, great, maybe there was a little bit of Ryan Poles basically saying, all right, listen, we could win 5-6 games, and that would be fine. And, you know, we could get a top 10 draft pick, or we could get the number 1 overall pick. What do you think's a little bit better? You know, really set ourselves. Maybe there was a little bit of that going on, but I don't know, man. They're just Matt Eberflus, just, to me right now, at this moment, outside of the culture stuff, which we don't get to see every day, just kind of seems like a guy. Like, it just seems like another coach, just another average coach who will be here for a little bit, and then, you know, they won't do anything with him, and then they'll move on and find the next thing. Like, he hasn't done anything to really make himself stand out to me, like, as a guy that I will remember 10 to 15 years from now. Like, who was the coach back in 2022? Oh, right, Matt Eberflus. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
And it's only been 1 year, and they were not very good in any facet of the game. They did not have a lot of talent anywhere. I understand that. He didn't have a lot to work with in terms of what he could coach up. But I think ultimately it does kind of go into what we've been talking about with Alan Williams and with Luke Getsy, where didn't see any improvement from a lot of the defensive players. We didn't see the offense and get guys that were brought in to succeed really ultimately work out. Like, to me, the Chase Claypool thing is also on Matt Eberflus, because if him and Ryan Poles really work together as closely as they lead us to believe, then Matt Eberflus was also okay with giving up a second round draft pick to get Chase Claypool. So then why is it acceptable for Luke Getsy to not use Chase Claypool at all? Like, that conversation needs to have been had by Matt Eberflus. Like, I get he's a defensive-minded guy, and Luke Getsy runs his offense. That's fine. But if he's going to be the CEO, then he needs to have some input on the offense. And we have heard that he has done that. He's worked with Justin Fields to give him some, okay, here's the offense. Here's what I would do as the defense. How would you counter it? We know that those conversations were had. But to have Luke Getsy basically just have 100% autonomy just because he's the offensive coordinator, I don't like that. I don't. Matt Eberflus should have some input if he's going to be the CEO guy. He
Yeah.
can't just be focused on the defense. He needs to be focused on everything. And if your guys aren't being included and you're not improving, you're not seeing improvement from younger players, that's an issue. And I'm curious to see how he addresses it.
Agreed. And I think he does have input on all sides of the ball. I truly do. And that's the one thing that I really do like, because we're not going to have that, at least as it pertains to like what side of the ball is failing. We're not going to have that conversation of, well, he was really only working with the defense. Like, do we just tread over offensive coordinators? Like, and Lovie Smith, that's why Lovie lasted so long, because he was running really fucking good defenses. They could never figure out the OC, right? I don't think that's going to be the case here. I do think, and I think others can tell based on what you're saying, you're harsher on Eberflus after year one than I was. But it's all like, but I hear it. I hear what you're saying, and I agree with it. I just don't agree with it to the same extent. Because there were times where it was like, why are you calling a timeout here? Or why aren't you calling a timeout here? Why are you not being aggressive in this moment? Or why are you being aggressive?
Why are you challenging a point after attempt or a kick when it would actually help you to not do that?
Yeah, but then part of me is also like, and maybe this is giving too much credit, but it's also hard for me to not when it comes to NFL teams just in general, because like they're meticulous. They do things like this. Just like you said, yeah, we could probably sneak out 2 or 3 more wins. Who's to say Poles didn't call down and, hey, don't challenge this one. Hey, punt this one. You know what I mean? Like, let's be realistic about this, because if I'm being honest with you, Jackie, unless things over the next couple of years are a complete shit show, which this just feels like, since Lovie, the most professional regime that we've had.
Right.
So with that said, well, maybe not, because like the John Fox things, they went off the rails, but like they had but you know what I'm saying? It just feels more professional. It certainly does over the Trestman thing, and then now what we know of the Matt Nagy era, coming off of those two, this feels like the most professional regime. I don't think it's gonna, it's shit will hit the fan in that way. And I think at least GM and head coach, coordinators could always be different. They can get hired on elsewhere or whatever. I'm ready for the Bears to commit for 5 years to really see a program through, to see a full rookie contract from day one to the end, or year one to the end, maybe even 2, you know what I mean? If it's 6 years, like really give them that time to set this culture, develop them, get the pieces that you absolutely need for your scheme. Because I wouldn't doubt, Jack, if me and you were doing a podcast, if we were old enough then, I think we would say very similar things about Lovie Smith. He won 5 games in his first year as a Bear, and nothing looked spectacular. Everything looked bland. I remember that year vividly, and just thinking like, damn, this was the guy that like helped the Rams get to the Super Bowl. Like he ran that defense there. Like it didn't look, and he also had a hand in Tampa Bay. I was like, this doesn't look like that defense, but look, another year or two, and they got those pieces that he needed to build straight through the middle, like he had with Tommy Harris, Brian Urlacher, and Mike Brown, and it fucking hit. You know what I mean? Right. So, again, I think that's why I'm not as down on Eberflus. He does come across to me much more like Lovie. I don't think he's necessarily ever going to make people better, but he's going to make elite talent shine even more, because he's going to set them up for that success with that defense.
Yeah, I ultimately just want to see like a star develop, because obviously he was able to do that in Indianapolis with Darius Leonard. And I think that for me is kind of where I'm getting like a little bit more like he seems sort of just like another guy. Because ultimately I watched a lot of Colts football. I saw his defense. They were good. And sometimes they were top 5. Like sometimes they had some games, a couple seasons where they were really damn good. But ultimately that team couldn't get over the hump. Now, granted, he wasn't in charge of everything, so you can't really put that all on him. If this defense can play top 10, top 5 defense, again, it just ultimately comes down to the offense, which I know, stop at me if you've heard that before, Bears fans. I just really hope that, if they get the defense sorted, great, good, fine, whatever. I've seen enough of it in my life where it hasn't worked for the Bears. They've been to 1 Super Bowl, they lost, fine. But that was coming up on, 13 seasons ago? 14 seasons ago now?
Yeah.
13 seasons? It's been a while.
No, longer than that, Jack. 16.
And they tried the whole offensive thing a couple times, right? Trestman is going to be our offensive guy. It somewhat worked. Too bad they have the worst defense in the league.
Jesus Christ.
Then they, kind of sheltered back and we're like, all right, stop. Let's go back to the defense. We'll get John Fox. We'll get Vic Fangio, Adam Gase. It'll be great. It wasn't great. Like, this doesn't feel like John Fox. This does feel better, but I don't know if it's progressive enough in the sense that I wanted, where it's like, all right, let's get an established offense together and we'll figure out the defense later. Like, there's still just so many question marks with this team just overall that I'm not going to say anybody's on the hot seat. I would agree with you that Allen Williams is probably the most replaceable at this point. Like, I could see out of all three of them, him being moved on from would not shock me if things do go bad. But, next year could be a little warm depending on what this season ultimately looks like. And until we see it, I'm not confident in saying like anybody's here to stay for life. Like, I haven't seen anything that's like, I'm like, all right, these are the fucking guys. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
yep.
How Justin played really well and you're like, I want to build around this guy. Coaching staff, I'm kind of like, I remember during the season, we're like, how we were worried before the season started, like, okay, if Luke Getsy figures this out, like, are we worried that he could be snatched up? And then like week 6, week 7, we're like, I mean, if he gets hired, he gets hired. It's fine either way.
Yeah, we weren't worried. I mean, we were worried for the team that was going to hire him because there was no way that, we were going to miss him too much. But again, I'm curious to see, because both talents have been both sides of the ball have been infused with more talent that they have to work with. And again, I don't think we're asking for much. I think that's the thing, is like, I think we are being very realistic in what we want to see from these guys. I want to see, really, I think you have top 15 on both sides of the ball if these coordinators know what they're doing, right? Like, and well, special teams was really bad last year, so I know we haven't touched on them, but they have got to be better. They were awful last season. So maybe their expectation is like just top 20 instead of bottom fucking 30. But yeah, there's just like you said, you're eliminating more and more excuses, and I know a lot of that is going to get turned on to Justin when it comes to the offensive side of the ball. But at the end of the day, I still want a coordinator that's setting him up for success, more often than not. And then if the mistakes happen, it's because of Justin, not because of a bad play call or just consistently, not moving the pocket or just doing more common sense things to help this offense out. Because you look at Justin's talent, you look at what they drafted, even though they could have had him, so who knows what they were thinking scout-wise, but when they drafted Trey Lance, you can't tell me Justin wouldn't look crazy in that San Francisco offense.
They probably would have won a Super Bowl by now, if I'm being honest with you.
Yeah, well, remember we used to say that if the Bears drafted Deshaun Watson, we'd have won the Super Bowl that year. We would have.
I think they would have.
Yeah.
If they drafted Patrick Mahomes, they absolutely would have won that Super Bowl.
Probably. Yeah. Well,
I'll tell you that.
Jackie, that was everything, but you did. I had to lean over and grab a pen really quick because I do think we now need an episode before the season of like what players need to make the leap. We talked about coordinators, what we want to see from them, and at the end of the day, players have a big say in this as well. Maybe we do like 3 on each side of the ball or 5 on each side of the ball. What is a player we need you to like?
I don't think there's 10 total in it that
I was thinking 3.
Feel comfortable.
I was thinking 3 on each side of the ball. Yeah.
I mean, ultimately, like, here's the thing. Like, as much as like the frontline talent has improved, there is no denying that this team will be better than they were, should be better than they were last year. Depth is still a legitimate. You look at the depth that the Chiefs have, that the Bills have, that the Eagles have, just top to bottom, the depth that they have. The Bears are still nowhere near that. They still have a lot of building to do.
Yeah.
So I think you're right. I think top 15 on both sides is a reasonable expectation. Be at least average, if not a little bit better than average on both sides, and you'll probably have a pretty good season. Now, what does that ultimately mean? Does that mean that they win more games? Are they, in those one-score possessions, how does Matt Eberflus look then? The decisions he makes there with the timeouts, things like that, I agree with you. But depth is still a legitimate concern when it comes to this team.
That's fair.
There is no two ways around it.
That's extremely fair. The depth looks much better this year than last year, though. And again, that's to me is like, that's why you give these guys 5-6 years. You continue to build upon that, because then what happens? Let's say They win 6 games this year, and it wasn't good enough. You get rid of them. Now you may be going back to a 3-4. You may be going back to a totally different 4-3 philosophy. You may be doing something totally different on offense now. And then now you're churning over players, and now your depth is gone. Versus like in year 5, hey, here goes fucking, TJ Edwards gets hurt. But there's this other guy that we drafted 2 years ago, Christian Jones. The Christian Jones version 2.0 is here, and he's ready to step up. Like that's how you do build that depth. You know what I mean? It's not just talent. It's about getting them in the system and letting them understand their roles.
The last thing I will say in regards to giving them enough time is one thing the Bears absolutely need to get away from is keeping one person and letting the other person go, and then letting that combination mix again. Because we saw it started in 2012 when Lovey was fired. Phil Emery or Jerry Angelo was fired in 2011. They brought in Phil Emery to be with Lovey Smith. Then Phil Emery hired Trustman, and then they both got fired. Or no, right? Both of them got fired. And then Ryan Pace was brought in with John Fox, but he didn't really get to pick John Fox. We know that was very clear. John Fox goes, he brings in Nagy, and then boom. Like it just they need to get away from that. Where there's just too much turnover happening. I mean, the 2010s will be looked at as just a complete fucking mess.
Awful
for the rest of Bears history.
One of the worst ran organizations in the league, if not the worst of that decade. It was embarrassing. But I do think the only way that's acceptable to me is if Ryan Pace shows that he's immaculate at his job. Ryan Poles. I'm sorry. If Ryan Poles,
easy mistake.
Yeah. They didn't want to. They had to save money on those business cards. If Ryan Poles shows that he's immaculate at scouting, and look, he just says, I fucked up with my hire, but now this next guy you hire, you're with for 5-6 years again. To me, that's acceptable. You know what I mean? If he proves to be, but again, to your point, it can't be the what do you even like that staggered sort of exiting and onboarding. You can't have that. You can't. But I mean, we've seen GMs stick around for 20 fucking years at places and get 2, 3, 4 coaches.
Like coaches.
Yeah. So, but again, if Poles shows that he's really good at his job, you do that, because at the end of the day, like it's a reflection of you to some degree if you hire a bad coach, but you also don't know the coach that you're going to get because you're hiring coordinators more times than not. This isn't to throw him a bone, but what I'm saying is, I think if you prove that you're immaculate at scouting, you have stacked draft classes year in and year out, and the coaches just can't get it together, you have then shown me that you can get another crack or two at getting another head coach and coordinators and such.
Sure. I would agree. If let's say this whole season blows up in their face, Matt Eberflus just looks like a complete clown, I don't think that's going to happen. Well, let's just say it does.
Right.
Yeah. I would be on board for Ryan. I mean, Ryan Poles is what, 36, 37? Like, still a very young guy, first time GM. Should we really judge him based off of one coaching hire that, again, maybe he ultimately didn't make? If you remember the whole, you guys have the same agent. Did that play into any of this hiring at all? No. I mean, okay. Like, maybe it did, maybe it didn't. We'll see. But I agree with you. Like, if Ryan Poles, his offseason has showed me that he has some savviness to him. And I want to see that from Matt Eberflus this year. Right? I want to see some personality come through. I want to see him take that next step. I agree with you. The changeover's got to stop. But, if it does have to happen, I'd be cool with Poles staying.
I forgot about the agent stuff. This is going to fail, isn't it, Jackie? This is all going to fail.
No, man, Bill Polian was a part of this. NFL legend, all right?
God damn it.
He helped out with this hire. He collected probably a nice little finder's fee.
Wait, I thought he helped out with Nagy. He helped out with this one too?
No, I don't think he helped out with Nagy. Did he?
Someone helped out with... No. Someone helped out with Pace.
It was Ernie Accorsi.
Ernie Accorsi. Holy fuck. I hate the Chicago Bears so much.
No, this is a new day. It's a new day to not hate them.
You're right.
It's going to be fine. Their team will win 6-7 games.
I will never forget...
They'll give Bears fans hope.
We need to figure out how to live stream things without getting DMCA'd, because you had so much PTSD from the Matt Nagy era. It was like the first quarter and we had a 3-and-out and you're like, I fucking can't. It's the same old shit, Frank. I was like, Jack, it's a monsoon and it's game 1.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh man, that was the greatest.
I did.
You had
and you know
so
what?
much. It was great.
To be fair, I think it's show me something else then. Oh, come on. Like,
and I'll fucking do it again.
I was very excited because of all the change, right? I was excited about all the conversations that were had, and it didn't work out, and then they won, and then I was like, oh,
yeah,
okay.
On the little fucking play action fake, throwing it deep. Was that Komet on that deep? Oh no, it was Dante Pettis on the deep ball for the win. Or was it Equanimous? It was one of those two.
Back? Dante Pettis is back, right? He's back on the Bears.
Yeah. I like him for that role, though. Like Gunner, wide receiver 5. Yeah, perfect for him.
If he beats out Tyler Houston or Velus, can he beat out either?
Wait, have we heard anything about Velus this offseason program? He's going to get cut. He's going to get fucking cut.
It's one of those things where, like, you follow the NFL beat writers on Twitter, right?
Yeah,
Because I strictly for dynasty purposes, so I could send it to people and either gas up players or kind of turn them down a little bit,
Yeah, fuck yeah.
But I don't think Velus.
He hasn't gotten the headline,
That's not good.
That's not good.
Everybody gets a headline.
It could be bad, though, because Claypool's headlines have been nothing but negativity this year. So maybe he's just got his head down, ready to rock and roll. Did you ever notice that Velus Jones kind of looks like Kevin White?
A little bit. I mean, he's older than Kevin White, if you think about it.
He is. Kevin White's still 24.
Yeah, Velus Jones,
26.
87.
Yeah, it's bad. God damn it.
Yeah, I mean, we'll have to have a conversation about
Jackie, I'm going to family night, baby.
Really?
Yeah, August 6th. Bringing the kiddos.
Go meet one of the players. Yeah. Who's going to be there?
So, I'm not sure. I have to look more into it, but last year I didn't know. My dad went. He took a couple of his nephews and they met no. They met
the ones he likes more.
They met Justin Fields. He had a picture right up, like literally shaking his hand, like right up on him. He said he's a cool dude. Yeah.
Well, Ermias is that's his favorite player. He's got the jersey and everything.
Yeah, it is. We're going to be decked out in our gear. We're going to get them on the field.
Now, I saw that the Texans are wearing their battle red helmets this season, and I just saw that the Browns are wearing white helmets. Yeah.
White.
I don't know where I was going with that.
The red. I don't know where you were either, but the red with the Texans will look nice. The
I was
white
gonna
with
say,
the Browns will look fucking gross.
I was gonna say, like, maybe the Bears could get a cool alternate one, but then I remember the orange helmets. Frank, if I see those fucking orange jerseys one more time,
you're gonna see
they won. They haven't won in like 8 years.
Nathan Vasher has a 108-yard field goal missed return for a fucking touchdown in the orange jerseys, Jackie.
No, he doesn't. No, he doesn't, because those aren't the orange jerseys. Those are the good.
They were a little bit different. You're right. It was more like the burnt orange. It was the burnt orange. These are the bright. Yeah.
Not the orange. The ones that make them look like
It's not even orange, because if you're in the sun, it looks fucking red, doesn't it?
You know what it looks like? It looks like Mac. One of those colored pencils, not colored pencils, the crayons, the Crayola ones. I bet if you looked in your son's. Yeah, exactly like one of those. If you look and find the one that says
macaroni, you're not going to question why
cheese,
I have a Crayola right on my desk.
Absolutely not. I just saw here just before we started this recording. I know why that's up. If you find the one that says macaroni and cheese, I guarantee you'll be like,
damn,
oh my God.
I think you're right.
That's the jersey color.
Which is really fucking weird, because on one of my monitors, I have Justin Fields as the wallpaper, and it has the orange outline around the number and around the letters of his last name, and it is that like burnt orange, and it looks so fucking dope. Why is that all orange, that nasty ass orange, that reddish orange?
I hate it, and they never fucking win in them, and the team doesn't care because they want to just sell jerseys. They want to sell stuff for money. It's disgusting. This is a football organization. All right. The only thing that matters is W's.
Football, baby. It's all that matters. It's all that fucking matters.
Frankie, I think that'll just about do it for this week's edition of the Bear With Us podcast. We appreciate you guys listening. As always, I'm Jack. He's Frank. Yeah, I mean, we only have a couple more, one more episode, and then I'll be a father.
Yeah. Fuck yeah, you will. And you're bringing you're bringing your kid to family night.
And then ultimately, I mean, he'll be a little young for that, but ultimately, the season is right around the block, man. Like fucking
I know.
preseason will be starting next month.
I know. August 13th?
Yeah. The wait is almost over, Frank.
August 12th is my birthday.
The wait is almost over. And we will be here for you guys to cover that.
Fuck my birthday, huh?
Yeah, I don't care about All right. Listen, Frank, we know how this works. You get to a certain point in your life and you're like, man,
I don't give a fuck about my
I
birthday.
don't care.
My wife gets so mad at me. She's more excited than me, and I just like look at her and she's like, I fucking hate this every year. You never care about your birthday.
Yeah, we'll grow. All right. Grow up.
I'll try to, Jackie.
Fucking better. All right. We'll talk to you guys next week. Thanks
Later,
for
Jackie.
listening.
Later, everybody.
Everybody.